This past weekend at Daytona was further proof to NASCAR that they need to do something about their playoff system. Austin Dillon's win at Richmond should have been enough of an alarm to kind of create some bit of response. However, nothing came of it. Then Harrison Burton decided he wanted to win at Daytona from last place in points to lock himself into the playoffs. And now the playoff bubble is a mess because of it. Before this season, we wouldn't have had to worry about either driver winning and getting in the playoffs from below 30th because NASCAR had a top 30 rule. You had to be 30th or better in points in order to be locked into the playoffs with a win. However, heading into the season, they decided to get rid of that rule. It might have been because teams that are low in points, jumping up to at least 16th, that's millions of dollars added to their pocket just instantly. So the teams might have been looking for some kind of rule like that, but it just does not help the sport at all. If you look at the standings now, if they kept the top 30 rule, obviously Harrison Burton would not be in the playoffs, leaving an extra spot, which would be taken by Bubba Wallace, who would be 6 points above Chastain for the cut line, me leaving a very interesting playoff battle that we could watch throughout the entire Darlington race. However, now it is a 20-plus point gap for both Bubba and Chastain to catch Chris Buescher, and that's almost an impossible margin when you have guys that are running about the same speed every week. So not only has getting rid of top 30 made the playoffs less interesting, but it's also hurt the integrity by letting somebody who has performed the worst this season compete for a championship. A lot of people think the best course of action would be to just abolish the win it in rule. However, I don't think that's exactly the way to go. If NASCAR had gotten rid of the win it in rule, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and Chris Buescher would all be locked in completely on points. Meanwhile, Austin Cindric and Harrison Burton would be knocked out of the playoffs completely with no chance of getting back in. Daniel Suarez, however, would be outside, but with a chance to get in. Kyle Busch and Daniel Suarez would be the only battle on a cut line, 16th and 17th respectively, and Suarez would be needing 25 points to catch Kyle Busch, which, like I said, is a very hard margin to make up in a single race. So it's a little more interesting because we've been able to see these guys compete for points throughout the entire season, and that makes the entire season mean just a little bit more. However, the cut line battle is a little less interesting because it's even more points to make up. A lot of people think NASCAR should just abolish the playoffs, and while that is a reasonable standing point, it's just not realistic. We would be having a very good regular season battle between Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott, but that's kind of where it stops. Multiple drivers are 20-plus points away from each other. There are 10 races left, or 11 races left, and so yeah, you can make that up, but we wouldn't really be following it like we would with the playoffs, where we follow 16th and 17th in the standings, we follow 12th and 13th, we follow 8th and 9th for each round. I also think abolishing the playoffs would be something that teams would be completely opposed to because, as I mentioned earlier, jumping from 34th to 16th is millions of dollars added to the Wood Brothers after the season because of their owner standings. And the owner standings are what determines your payout after each season. So a team that jumped double of their position is getting double the money that they actually would. It's probably even more than double, just based on how the pot is split. So while I understand the sentiment to get rid of the playoffs entirely, I don't think it would be good from an entertainment perspective or from a business perspective. I think it would only lead to more drama with the teams between NASCAR and them than what's already there, and it's just not necessary. I think the best course of action for NASCAR to take in this scenario would be to add a top 25 rule. Similar to the top 30, it's just a little bit more strict, because I feel like once we get around the 25th in points, we start to get to the guys that are just kind of hoping to get top 20s every week rather than guys that think they can get top 10s every week. Because we have guys like Michael McDowell, Carson Hocevar, Todd Gilliland, who have all put together very solid runs multiple times this year that are 20th to 25th in points, and then below them we start to get to the guys like Ryan Preece, Eric Jones, Daniel Hemrick, who are solid drivers, but haven't had a single good run this season to really prove that they can compete at all with any of the top guys. So I think that 25 is a perfect cutoff. It's not too strict to where you have some decent guys that could miss the playoffs if they got a win, but it's not too lenient to where we have guys that don't deserve to be near the championship talk at all going and competing for it over guys that definitely should be just because they won a random race at a super speedway off basically complete luck. It also adds to the business aspect, as I added before. 25th to 16th is a near 10-point gap that you can make up just from winning a race at Daytona. And so that's a lot of money from not only winning the race winnings, but also the owner standings after the season. That's a lot of money to make up. So that's kind of my take on this whole playoff situation after Daytona. Obviously, we still have another race this weekend before the playoffs even start at Darlington, and that's usually a good race of attrition to where we can see some random guys up front. Eric Jones, he's won at Darlington in the 43 car already, so who's to say he can't do it again? Darlington's a very grueling race that could take a lot of top guys out and leave a lot of these midfield guys to take their opportunity, go up front, lock themselves into the playoffs at the last second. So we'll see how it goes. However, no matter what, we will be looking for a rule change about the playoffs heading into next season, because if there isn't a change, there is a problem that needs to be addressed.